Let's talk about all the books I read in January, February, and my recent purchases. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're good. I'm here with another book video, and welcome to 2025 with me. It's my first video of the year. I am going to go through all the books I read in January and February this year. I cannot believe it is nearly March, as well as I'm going to say a few. I've bought loads of books recently, so I thought I'd go through some of my purchases, just talk you through my reasoning because I feel I need to justify, and yeah, just talk about what I love most, which is books. I'm quite pleased to say I set myself a New Year's resolution to read more of the books that are on my shelf, including my recent purchases, and I've been pretty good at doing that so far. In terms of me buying books, I'm not even going to attempt to lift the pile, but if I just count, 12 books. That's how many I've bought recently, and I don't even think that's all of them. But I thought I would just talk through where I was when I got them, why, and just because I love them so much. Basically, I read a lot of books last year from the library. I got them in hardback, and it turned out I loved them so much that I want to buy them in paperback, so I've got a copy on my shelf. And one of those, well, a few of those, let's not be around the bush, is one of those is Green Dot by Madeline Gray. I spoke about this in one of my other videos, I'll link it in the corner. And it's set in Australia. Woman goes to work, she hates her job, but she has an affair with a guy. Really good premise. And then, I can't believe I didn't own copies of these, but I've fallen in love with Coco Mella's writing, so I got both. And you know what it is? Waterstones, their books of the month are great, and Blue Sisters was one of them, as I predicted. But again, I read this last year in hardback. Honestly, I loved Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellis, her first book, her debut. I read this in a few days. Similarly with Blue Sisters, I pre-ordered it straight away from the library, and then I got my own paperback, so it's now on my shelf. And it's just stunning, it's gorgeous. She is like an auto-buy author. Like, I don't like buying hardback so much. That's why I always buy the paperback, because they're easier to hold and it just means a bit more to me. And yeah, I just really enjoyed that. This, to give some context, Blue Sisters, it follows four sisters, Avery, Bonnie, Lucky and Nikki. One of them's died, and it's just the three who are trying to recover from the grief of losing her as they try to deal with their mum selling their family home. Or is it their sister's home? I can't remember, I've read loads of books, but it's just gorgeous, it's very character driven, and just a wonderfully written book. Not even halfway. The next one I got is another copy of One Day. I read this I read this last year. I watched the film, wasn't so keen. The Netflix series though was amazing, and I got this again because I was meant to take my own copy when I saw David Nichols at a library event, and he was there, he was signing copies at the end, and I was like, I cannot skip this. I got last minute tickets on the day of the event because I was on their waiting list, and yeah, I got another one, and it is signed in the front as well. So I love his books. I Love You Are Here. Again, I've read the hardback of it. I bought it and then I sold it. I want the paperback when it comes out in July, so I'm going to get my hands on that. And still going through my list, oh my goodness, I basically just did a massive order, and I'm not ashamed of it, because the Women's Prize long list for non-fiction came out, and I was very surprised to see there were a few that I was really interested in, and one of those is in one of the books I read this month. And I've just enjoyed non-fiction lately. Like, there have been a few of them, not a load. I've just really enjoyed it. And one of them I'll show you in a bit, but another one was Ootlin by Jenny Fagan. This is a memoir. Quite a few of the long listed books are memoirs. I just love that kind of writing, and this sounds, yeah, I've seen mixed reviews on like how harrowing it can be, but this, like, I'm looking forward to reading that and just experiencing a new voice. And I also got in my order Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. I got a little advance, not an advanced reader copy, but like a little sample of this book when I went to the Women's Prize, event last year in summer. And I was like, okay, I have this on my list, and it's just creeped its way into my basket, so I'm going to be reading that soon. And then from the final books I got The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I love the cover of this, it's so cute, and the concept of this sounds really interesting. Now, I'm an anxiety-ridden individual, should we say. Thankfully, I'm finding ways to manage it. I've dealt with it for most of my life, and I'm not going to shy away from that. It's just part of who I am. And this just fascinates me because I can totally relate to like how our generation is becoming more unhappy, more anxiety ridden. And it says how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. So I can't imagine growing up now what that must be like, because I think when I was growing up I was on the cusp of phones coming in and social media. I'm just so glad I was there to like avoid it. And this, I think, I've had a little sneak peek, and some of the stats in this are really interesting, so I look forward to learning more about that one. I'm rushing because I have so many books to get through, but we're nearly there. I got The Women by Kristen Hanna. This was half price of Waterstones. They are killing it in a minute. And I'd had my eye on this as well. And because it is quite a fat book with tiny text, that's when I prefer to buy thicker books instead of getting them from the library. And this is, I can't tell you what this is about. I just know when I read the blurb, it sounds very up my street. Just about people, their lives. What more can you ask for? 3 more books. I got this beast, which kind of proves my point. Caledonian Road by Andrew O'Hagan. This, I have no words. It's a big old door stopper, isn't it? And I think this is just a life, a book, a life. I kind of like those kinds of books, like one which I read in February this month, and then A Little Life, and just a few other fat books. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I just think it gives more room to tell a story of one's life. And yeah, I look forward to this. I've also got it on my Kindle because I like to switch between them too. So I could be sitting on the sofa with this, or if I'm just going to bed, I'll lay on my side with my Kindle and then fall asleep reading. That's how I do it. But yeah, I've got this beast to tackle, and then 2 more. I'll show you the other beast I have. Is this one, which somehow creeped into my hands and to the till with my next book. This is Lies and Sorcery by Elsa Marante. I believe this is an Italian translation, and why did I fall in love with this book again? I think again, very similar theme. It just follows a person's life, and this is set in the early 1900s, and it is a celebration of the female imagination and the power of storytelling itself. I am sold by that, and this is I reckon this will be a holiday read that I will tackle. This beast, I think, comes in at over, is it 700 pages? Over 750 pages. That's one of the longest books I will ever own. I think, again, the longest book I've read is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I remember the earliest book I read, which was Fat Was the Host by Stephanie Meyer. I think I must have been 2012, 2013. So we're talking over a decade here. And finally, before I get onto my January and February reads, is Perfection, another translated book. Who Am I? Again, it's fiction. It's by Vincenzo Latronico. It's a Fitzcarraldo edition as well. And this has made it onto the International Booker long list, which came out this week as well. So I am making some good choices, to be honest, and I am pretty pleased with myself. But without further ado, there are the books I purchased, which I need to read, and I'm going to go on to my January reads. So it was a slow start to January, but it was a bit more positive compared to last year because I looked at my Goodreads, and there were some books last year and it just didn't get off to a good start. But this year it was fine, it was a bit slower. I don't have most of the books because they're either with my family, I've sold them, or they were library books. But I'll try to do what I can. So the first one I read is Us by David Nichols. You may recognise it. It's also a BBC programme that you can also watch on Amazon at the minute. And so much so, I think I was reading it and watching it in parallel to each other in terms of the story that was going on. And I just loved it. Again, just David Nichols in his books. I don't know what it is. When he spoke about it at the event I went to, he's just so, not just well-spoken, but experienced and just knows how to craft a story about life, love, sometimes loss as well. I think it comes down to him talking about his experience as being a screenwriter and before that trying to be an actor, before he switched, made the move, and found his calling. Us follows Douglas and his wife Connie, who, it's no spoiler, at the very beginning she tells him she thinks their marriage is over. They've got this trip coming up across Europe and they take their son Albie, and we just kind of see what happens between the three because something's not working. It's not been working for a few years, and we dissect that as well, jumping between the present and then the past as well. Douglas and Connie's past. I loved it. I recommended it to my mum. I think it would really up her street. She enjoys the TV show as well, and it has Tom Hollander, if you recognise him. He's from Pirates of the Caribbean. And yeah, I loved it as well. Next was a book club read. So I'm in what, 2 or 3 book clubs at the minute. It was a kind of New Year's resolution thing, and I'm sticking to it with my friends. Really enjoying it, but this book was not a good start. I won't lie. It was Autumn by Ali Smith. I have no big words for this. I didn't enjoy it. I felt I wasn't smart enough to understand the concept. I felt there were loads of not even plot holes. It was not an enjoyable read, but I can understand why it's got the literary acclaim that it has sometimes, and it's part of a quartet. I don't believe I'll be reading the full quartet series, so moving on from that is my next book, which I do have a copy of, is Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I was in a funk by this point after reading Autumn, and I was just like, no, I need something that I know will not fail me. So I read the ACOTAR series. I mean, we all know what it is. I don't need to explain. And then there's the Throne of Glass series. This was good. I'm not rating it as much as the ACOTAR series at the minute. So this is the second one because I've read it as the second book. So there's the prequel, The Assassin's Blade. That was okay. That was a really easy read. This one was okay. I'm not on the hype just yet, but I'm not dissuaded from reading the others. It's more action-packed compared to the romantasy type of the ACOTAR series, but I enjoyed it. It follows Selena Sardothian. She's an assassin in a kingdom and she's fighting for her freedom. She's basically a badass girl and she can fight. You don't want to mess with her. But I got to the end. I'd enjoyed it. I just don't think I'm much of a action-loving girl. But am I going to read the series? Most likely, yes. My next book is The Governor by Vanessa Frake. This was a random one I found in the library. It follows a prison officer, where it's basically her talking about her life as a prison officer. I really enjoyed this. It was a whole non-fiction aspect, and I don't know why I was drawn to this. I think I'd read a police memoir a few months ago and I enjoyed it. Again, I just randomly found it in the library, and it was a nice switch between all the fiction I've been reading, and it is kind of what I want to do more of this year, and I am ticking those boxes at the minute. It's just a really good memoir, really compelling, really informative, and yeah, I'd really recommend it. Not much more to say. My final read for January was She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark. Now, I wasn't too keen on reading this, and I think my mind was telling me something there. I read this and I didn't get it. It was bonkers in true Eliza Clark style. Like, it was good. The writing was good. But in terms of the story, I just did not enjoy it. It was loads of short stories, but it spanned from like sexual assault to domestic violence, and then there's this stuff about body dysmorphia and aliens. Not too sure what's going on there, but I felt I just couldn't grasp the concept and I just didn't enjoy it. By the end, I was quite glad to have finished. But hey, it's done. My next books, I have a copy of each right in front of me. And going on to new books I bought this year, I got Wintering by Catherine May. I don't know what compelled me to buy this. I think I'm signed up to Emma Gannon's Substack. If you know me, I love Emma Gannon. Anything she does, and she's got a new book coming out in April, and you bet I'm going to read that. I love everything she does, she writes. And this, I believe, was recommended a few months ago, so I got it. And I read this, I think, in 1 or 2 days. It's so gorgeous. This is non-fiction, it's a memoir. It's basically when she talks about her going through basically burnout. She's gone, she needs recovery. And even though she was resting, she wasn't quite feeling herself. And I cannot tell you how much I related to this. So about this time last year, I was going through the same. I was at my wit's end. I was a shell of myself. I didn't enjoy what I was doing in my job. I felt completely hopeless, and I quit. I quit without telling my family. I had my boyfriend's support, and I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. I need to recover. I need to focus on myself. And it probably sounds a bit, oh, woe is me, but let me tell you, I never want to go back there again. And now I've had the chance to recover, and I've had that support from my boyfriend. I'm so grateful. And this really hit when I read it. Ugh. This is Wintering, the Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times, and she basically reflects on being back at one with nature. And it reminds me again of Emma Gannon's, which book is it? The Success Myth, where her introduction, she's talking about introducing that. And then there's also her 2 recent books, Year of Rest, I think it's called that. I'll put them on screen if I can remember what they look like. And this is this is just beautiful. But what I can remember mostly is her going to Iceland and trying out just being one with nature again and experiencing like the cold water. And then when she went cold water dipping or swimming again as well, which also reminds me of The Outrun by Amy Liptrop, which is a memoir and also a film with Saoirse Ronan, which I saw, and it was utterly beautiful. Oh, I love that film. It's amazing. And the book is just gorgeous as well. I might be surprised if I read that again this year. I'm aware I'm flipping this book around a lot. I'm so sorry. But this is just what I needed to read to get me out of like a little funk after the Eliza Clark book. I just didn't enjoy that. But this was what I needed. And if I read this time last year, would it have had the same impact? I don't know. I may not have been able to have comprehended what was going on. And only now can I see a year from then how far I've come. yeah, I'm just so proud of myself. And this just resonated so, so much. Next is a book that's been on my shelf for like 2 or 3 years, I want to say, and I finally got round to it. And oh my gosh, I started this book being like, what the F is going on? It's bonkers. Only to realise this is one of the most surprising, gorgeous, grounding novels I've read in a long time. It is The Stranding by Kate Sawyer. I don't know where to begin with this book. It is crazy. It's kind of like a dystopian sci-fi fiction. I don't know. I went into this thinking it was going to be a really nice, falling in love, at one with nature book. How wrong was I? It follows Ruth. It flicks between her past and then the present, where apparently she is in New Zealand, she's on her own, and it seems there's some sort of apocalypse going on. Now, hear me out. I was reading this, I was like, trying to explain it to my boyfriend. I was saying, like, yeah, I'm reading this book at the minute, and I think there's an apocalypse, but then this couple have survived by staying inside a whale. It sounds so silly when you read it like that. And if it was on the back, which it wasn't quite, that she survived an apocalypse by staying in a whale, I would not have read this. But I'm so glad I read. I can't do it justice enough. It's, imagine if everything you knew was immediately changed. So there's no energy, there's no electricity, it's just the sun. There's one other person on this planet that you think exists. You don't know if anyone else is out there. And you have to go back to basics. You don't have your phone anymore. You have to find your own food, your own clean water, make your own clothes. And I fell in love with this, and just makes you see what we sometimes take for granted in terms of our friends, our family, and the fact it was set in New Zealand. So Ruth is from the UK. She goes to New Zealand after splitting from her boyfriend, kind of like to find herself or just to do what she wants. And it makes it feel even more remote and alone. And she meets someone else, comes across this whale, goes inside of the whale's mouth. I can't remember why they do this, but they come out and the world is just a bit more different. That's all I'm going to say about that. It was very strange, but I felt compelled to read it. Like, I took it to work and I was like itching for my lunch break to read it. That's when I know it's a good sign. And I ended up really, really enjoying this. Next, I have a couple of big reads. This time I've got Real Americans by Rachel Khong. I really enjoyed this. It got a bit weird at the end and I was a bit like, kind of ruined it. But this is basically a carbon copy of Mongrel by, I want to say, Hanneke Footman, which I read last year, which I absolutely adored, which was a Japanese English book where the characters flick between, it's three perspectives, three women, and different times. This is Chinese American between three perspectives, two women, one male, and you find out how they're all related and everything and why they've done the things they do. I just really enjoyed it until it got to the end, which I won't spoil for you. It got a little bit weird, but again, this was one of those books I read it over a weekend. I was really looking forward to reading it. And the only way I could describe it is that it follows a family again, and then just life, what it means. This American Chinese woman trying to find herself because she can't speak any Chinese. She's selected, singled out, and she falls in love, but then things go on from there when she gets pregnant, and you see why she does the things she does. That's all I'm going to say. Two more books for February. I finished this one literally a few days ago and I had to flick. This was a flick in between the Kindle and the book kind of thing. It's The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. I set this for my boyfriend's family's book club. And yeah, if I hadn't, I don't know when I would have got round to this. It is a beast. Over 650 pages, but oh my gosh, what a whirlwind. I got to, I think it was halfway, and I was like, I'm just not enjoying this. I don't get what the hype is. This was also shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2023. I want to say, I can understand why now. It's an Irish novel, and what I compare it to is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, but also a Graham Norton novel. So with the whole wit of the Irish, and there's no, I was going to spoil it just then, and I don't want to. I want you to enjoy this like I did. Give it a chance. It flicks between a few different, all four perspectives of the same family, which is the Barnes family. You basically realise how flawed they are, and oh my gosh, I wasn't enjoying this till halfway. Something clicked. I kind of predicted what was going to happen, but then at the end, it is the epitome of a page turner when you see what is happening. I know that isn't a lot to go on right now, but oh my gosh, trust me when I say you don't want to put this down. I really, really enjoyed this. And finally, we get to the last book that I also bought recently, but I finished yesterday. It is Raising Hair by Chloe Dalton. This is a memoir and it is also on the Women's Prize for Nonfiction longlist. Oh my gosh, this book. This has turned into one of my favourite books I've read so far this year. Easy 5 stars. Easy. It's literally about this woman during the pandemic, well, Chloe Dalton, the woman, and her tellings of a hare, raising a hare or finding it as a leveret. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically a baby hare. And one of her walks in the countryside during the pandemic, and she grows to basically not become friends with it, but it lives in her house. It begins to trust her, and we just follow the life where it's literally about this hare. I fell in love with this hare. I fell in love with everything that happened. Oh, it was just beautiful, beautifully written, a beautiful story, and just one to take you back to nature and just fall in love with the UK in a way and all that it has to offer with the wildlife as well. Oh, it was just so gorgeous. But yeah, they're all the books I read. Quite a few, huh? I purchased as well, but it's been a really good reading time. I've got some good choices. I think I'm starting to realize what I like, kind of am able to recommend to people as well, and also for myself for future recommendations. But yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next video. Hit like and subscribe, it really means a lot. See you soon. Bye.